Greetings, everybody. This is Courtney Starhart with Plant Medicine University and Finding the Force. And it's my extreme pleasure to have here today Patricio Dominguez, who we call Tata, who is our spiritual leader, and I had the privilege of studying with for many years. And we'd like to talk to you today about DMT, the experiments with spirit molecule as an example of why not to put additives into your ayahuasca. And of course, Patricio is an expert on this subject matter, and I would love to hear your thoughts on ayahuasca.
Okay, yes. Ayahuasca has its place in the spiritual practices. As you know, historically, ayahuasca is found in the Amazon jungle because that's really the only place that it can grow naturally. It has been cultivated throughout the world now in greenhouses and artificial environments. However, it does have its origin in one particular part of the world only, and that is the Amazon jungle, the home of the what we call the Taitas. Now, the Taitas have been using this medicine for millennia. They have thousands of years, tens of thousands of years of practice with this particular medicine. So over the course of those 10,000 years, they have refined its use. It's probably unknowable the number of mistakes that have been made with this medicine in the process of getting to what they are doing today. The mixtures that they have come up with, the ratios and proportions of one plant to the other, because ayahuasca is not like tea. It's not a one plant item that you simply boil and drink. It's and even in that case, there are some people that like strong tea, and then there are some people that like their weak tea. And the stronger you make the tea, the more bitter it is, and the harder it is to drink. And of course, the greater the effect it has on you. However, using that as an example, even in the case of tea, ordinary garden variety tea, there is a point where you could actually do it a little too much. And I'm sure that has fallen into the category of the mistakes that were made prior to, the safe, sane, sound usage that we are seeing today in the jungles.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you, but I would love for you to tell people how you acquired this knowledge because they don't have a visual on what Native American politics or any of that looks like. So, can we go back to the time when you were in the jungle, when you were with Taita Polino, when you were learning with the Taitas? Would that be all right? Because that's fascinating to
Yeah,
me.
sure.
How you
Yeah,
learned.
I know it's fascinating, but I have to give you like a
Uh,
thumbnail because see
sure, of course.
that would take a really long time to unreel. And you know the
Perhaps,
story, of course.
perhaps
And
I
I'm
can. Yeah,
yeah,
let
yeah,
me do it.
but okay, yeah.
So,
So anyway,
Patricio,
yes, in
yeah,
my work as a native spiritual practitioner, I was invited to work with native practitioners from other parts of the world and including South America, and that included working with the Amazonian medicine people. And I spent an apprenticeship with Amazonian medicine people, not only in Amazon, but I actually was able to, since I'm an American too, and had the wherewithal to bring the Taitas to the United States. I worked with the Taitas in the United States, in my own home, in my homeland, so I could actually live with them in their environment and have them live with me in my environment. So
so
I
this
I
kind of
did I
cultural
did get
exchange
that.
is priceless
Yeah,
because what you guys are looking at here is a traditional medicine person who probably would have been the chief in his tribe and who's a generational herbalist and shaman medicine person and spiritual guide. The really important thing here too is that Patricio doesn't just carry the knowledge of his lineage, which is already rich and diverse and wonderful. On top of that, he picked up the lineage of dozens of other tribal elders while he was organizing these international councils. It was like the UN of Native Americans from North, South, and Central America. Now, the Pueblos are famous for that. And I want to give you the context there too, because you look at places like Kuwawa up there in Bernalillo, or let's see, Chaco, and you can see the remnants of a great civilization. I mean, the Pueblos are the masters of elegance, simplicity, ceremony, tracking the stars, all of this rich heritage. So I want to context you guys in that scenario that Patricio is still up to the same stuff that the Pueblos have been up to for a long time. So, okay, you've got a world-renowned expert here who's telling you, don't put extra stuff in your ayahuasca brew. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's really what you're hearing. And here's the reason for it. Okay, I'm going to use a metaphor because metaphors get the message across.
Right.
People have a culture right now, which I am going to call their home. Now, they are uncomfortable in their home because it is lacking some accoutrements that they would like to have. So what they do is they will remodel their home to suit their new needs or desires. And in the metaphor, people are uncomfortable in the home of their spirituality, so they want to remodel their spirituality to accommodate their discomfort. So they are reaching out to something to remodel. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. When there is a difference between remodeling your home and completely destroying it and building a new home.
Right?
Now, the safe process. The safe process is to remodel your home in stages so that you have a place to live. If you destroy your home, you don't have a place to live. So
and in the case
now
of your mind, you can't get a hotel. You
yeah,
can't just go rent an Airbnb
yes,
if you crash your mind.
there's no spiritual being
So let's add
Airbnb.
that in there, please.
So yeah, you don't have that alternative in that realm. So when you destroy your spiritual home, you're at sea. So the best way to do it is by remodeling it in very safe increments that allow you to comfortably move into your new expanded space. So
in harmony and balance. Like you
yeah,
also want the shamanic feng shui, which is something that my Native American elder here is an expert at. You know, you go into a kiva and it is the ultimate feng shui. And it is our shamanic heritage, the east, south, west, and north, the elements being in balance. And that's not something that you can do all at once. Balancing things, right?
so
Also mapping a vision for what you want. People are just launching into the deep end of the mind without any concept of what their trajectory is when they add too much DMT or other things to their medicine, right?
both both dosage and strength of the medicine matter. Again, using the analogy of remodeling the home. If you do too much damage too fast to the supporting structure, it's not going to be habitable. And this is the situation that I've dealt with. I have had to treat several DMT casualties simply because they were looking for those quote unquote breakthrough experiences. Well, breakthrough experiences are great for those whose infrastructure, and I'm talking about spiritual infrastructure, can handle it. But if their spiritual infrastructure can't handle it, then of course now they've knocked down the walls of their home, and they have created an unlivable space, and they have to come looking to me to kind of temporarily house them spiritually till we can build enough infrastructure for them to build back. The right way to do this is to do it gradually, and there's nothing wrong with with growing spiritually gradually. In fact, that is the right way to do it. If you go, as Courtney said, off the deep end, you are not going to do very well. Again, another analogy, if you throw the person into the water you throw them in a lake to learn how to swim. Well, I know that's a technique that's been used, but you don't throw them in the middle of the lake and have them swim to the shore, or you don't throw them in the middle of the ocean and have them swim to the shore, because that's their first swim. That's asking a little too much. So if you're going to throw them if you're going to use that technique, you throw them on the edge of the lake, so at least they have a chance of making it to the back to land. And so, this is what people have to take into consideration. It is not a good idea to try for a breakthrough on your first experience.
And you
Maybe,
should do maybe on the second one,
maybe on I was going to say the 15th.
15, right?
Yes.
Here's the
No.
thing about ayahuasca is that she's not a cheap date. She likes to hold hands. She likes to be romanced. You should write her some poetry. You should treat it as if it were a courting type of relationship where you don't expect to hit a home run on the first night. I mean, it's maybe a vulgar analogy, but it's one that everyone can understand, that building a relationship takes time. And it's like it is almost like the poetry of Rumi. All of that very kind of mystical love poem writing should be the frame of mind when we're going into the medicine, something sacred and beautiful. And the more that people are willing to do their work in connecting with her, then the more they're going to get out of it. And it's also on her time, not on yours, right?
Yes. And you have to remember, you are here working with your mind here. I mean, you do not want to impair it in any way, shape, or form, because you actually need it. You really do need it. So don't push it beyond its workable limits. It will expand. It will expand with the proper practice and exercise, but do not destroy it
And you don't want to blow it up. Yeah.
on the first day out. And or as Courtney used the analogy of a date, don't destroy your chances of a relationship on the first date because you are expecting way too much from that experience. So I due to
Spirit molecule.
due to time constraints, though, I cannot really give you a whole lot more information. I know Courtney was hoping that I could cover a lot more material today, but
We will eventually.
this is critical. This is something that will save spiritual lives. And so, as one of my teachers used to say, you really should proceed always safely, always safely. There is you cannot undo a tragedy, or what do they call that? Well, you can't undo, if you kill yourself, you can't undo it. You haven't learned anything. So it is better to proceed safely and with caution than to proceed unsafely. So
So you don't get 9 lives. You don't get to respawn, none of that. If you wreck your home and you don't put the pillars up and have a proper construction plan to do gradually with a beautiful vision in mind, then you're really going nowhere. So let's just talk at the end here about spirit molecule. I know we got to wrap it up, but the
oh,
DMT done wrong. Okay, you're
DMT,
not going to get enough
yes,
DMT into ayahuasca to get what they got. Now, Joe Rogan is the host in the movie. I don't know if you can get it on Netflix anymore or anywhere, but Patricio had the most views on the outtakes. The outtake views on Patricio's segments from Spirit Molecule got more views than the actual movie itself. So, from someone who was involved personally in that experiment, I know that you and Tata Eric went and applied to be volunteers, and there was no spectator sport. So either he had to get in and be part of the experiment and get shot up with DMT at outrageous doses, or he had to leave. And as a medicine man, he wanted to help them because he had generational knowledge of how to work with plant medicine, moving through all these different worlds. So DMT gone wrong. at the extreme end is spirit molecule, right?
Yes, the experiment that was done, that the Spirit Molecule movie is about, is a very good case of the wrong use. The psychiatrists that were running the experiment, having no cultural background at all, having really no clear understanding as to what the substance could do spiritually, psychically, went for broke. They actually were giving doses that they knew were on the very edge of the tolerance of human beings. It is only by the grace of my culture and training that I actually survived spiritually, psychically, that experiment. Nobody left that experiment unscathed. In fact, it was an inside joke among the volunteers in that thing, is at the end of this experiment, there were no atheists. Everyone's life worldview was shattered by this experiment. And fortunately, the psychiatrists, because this was a team of psychiatrists at a university, realized that there was they needed to do damage control just to save their own academic lives, because they realized that something had gone. In fact, they shut the experiment down. They actually literally shut the experiment down after running it for a little while, because the results were just so out of control, and they've tried to smooth it over. But
No atheists and no survivors.
yes, we went into psychological counseling, or the group was put into a group therapy situation for many sessions after the experiment, and they said they were going to monitor us for 5 years after, because they were concerned. And yes, it was again a case of too much too fast, and this is not the way. Again, and this is what I was trying to allude to earlier. You
So
have
what were
to
the
do.
dosages like? What were the dosages actually like? I remember your story of sitting with the Taitas in the jungle and trying to measure how many gallons of ayahuasca, the thick syrupy brew that you can barely get a shot down of. That shot of ayahuasca that we do, how
Yeah,
much DMT do you
if
think
you
that
were if okay
contains?
if you were to do that, the dosages that we took in ayahuasca, you would have to drink 5 gallons of ayahuasca at that setting. Because I calculated the amount of DMT in an average ayahuasca dose,
Right.
and then calculated the amount of. I knew, because I didn't have to calculate. I knew the dosage of DMT that they gave us, compared the amount of DMT in ayahuasca, in an ayahuasca dose, and the amount of DMT that we were injected with. And if I turned that into ayahuasca, it was the equivalent of drinking 5 gallons of ayahuasca in one setting, which is
Obviously, your neurology would never tolerate, your
physically
gastric would never tolerate.
impossible.
It'd
Physically
be impossible.
impossible.
So they had to shoot them up with it, to be clear. No MAOI was involved because they were injected intravenously with purely extracted DMT, which at the lowest dose, he said was too much. Remember
Yes, at the lowest dose
the allergy test
was already beyond what you would normally get in an ayahuasca session.
by hundreds, I'm sure.
Well, I didn't
Yeah,
calculate the low dose. I did do the calculations for the high dose.
yeah.
So I suppose I
It's
could go back and do the recalculation, but I'll bet you it was something like, it's still a gallon or something. It was ridiculous.
when people
The
are
high
adding When people are, oh yeah, the high dose, forget about it. You can go see the outtakes of him on the high dose. Do your own homework on that one. Your outtakes are fabulous from Spirit Molecule. But so when people are adding, let's say, DMT into their ayahuasca brew, how loaded do you think that solution would tolerate in terms of, you know what I'm saying? The ratio is supposed to be 2 to 1, right?
The ratio is two.
Sure enough.
Yes, the traditional ratio is 2 to 1.
Okay, so then
And,
you're having
and,
twice
and
as
some
much
tribes actually, who are a little more sane, or I should say a little more cautious, are doing 1-to-1.
because when you're increasing the MAOI, you're increasing the amount of DMT which can be absorbed into the system. Is that correct?
Correct. In fact, actually, increasing the MOAI, you could keep the DMT level at what it is, increase the MOAI, and just actually get a better experience
Better
because
result.
yes, because your physical body is now allowed to absorb. And see, that's the difference between taking it in naturally and having some fool actually inject it into your veins. I mean, that's a forced situation that probably should not do not do this at home unless I have to put into context. We had not only psychiatrists on board, we had psych nurses and regular nurses with a crash cart on hand at the time of each injection, because on some level that group of people knew what they were
You just
doing was
flatline. Yeah.
they knew that they were messing with stuff, and
So,
adding extra DMT. Actually, adding extra DMT, I don't even know if it actually would do anything really, because the amount of MOAI determines the amount of DMT that you can absorb. So maybe actually that's a waste of good DMT.
but if it is being absorbed, if
But
they
if it
are
is, but
sufficiently inhibited, as McKenna,
if it is being absorbed, that's not a good idea. Again, now you're forcing hyper experiences that would be very difficult to integrate. Again, you're tearing down too much of the house to in the remodeling process, and you're making it uninhabitable.
you're kind of frying the electrical circuitry in a house too, in a
Yes.
way, and potentially shattering some of the
The
foundation.
human nervous system has its limits, and if you put too much of a neurotransmitter, of which DMT is, if you put too much of a neurotransmitter into the system, that's that system is going to have to compensate somehow, some way, and there will be shutdowns. I I could relate some of the internal horrors, but that would I cannot do that because it'd probably be still, even though it's many years out, there could be liabilities in revealing some insider information from the experiment. That, like I said,
There are horrible things that happened that they certainly didn't put in the movie or in the book.
there's a lot of stuff that's not in the book or
There's a
in the
lot of
movie.
stuff that
In
what didn't
fact,
make the
actually, the
book.
problem was the books and the movie tried to glamorize, try almost, made an attempt to glamorize the experiment. Uh, it
Well,
was
the way
well,
Joe Rogan makes it look, it's all just this very clean, theater kind of setting, and it's super, super nice. All of
yes,
the stuff that you see in the documentary, people are like, oh, and I saw these pretty lights, and I met these beings of light, and I saw the universe.
and
Yeah,
and there was 49 volunteers, and in the movie and the book they don't talk to all 49
talk to like two
volunteers.
or three of them.
There's a reason why. And if you poke around hard enough and ask, well, why did you shut down the experiment? You'd get some scary answers.
Well, so back in the day, just real quick, McKenna made some numbers around the MAOI inhibition levels. Wasn't it like 30 grams or something to be fully inhibited? It was a huge amount of MAOI.
Yes, you and I did a lot of that work when you were still working with me. Yes.
We were studying the biochemistry of all this. I had the privilege of sitting with Patricio and learning from him. He's also an expert in chemistry and all this great stuff. So anyway, what is the proper way to prep? We've established what the proper ratio is in the ayahuasca. We want a 2-to-1 ratio. We want no additives. We want it as clean as possible, right? So we know that. We want organic, hand tended. We don't want to be chopping down old growth vines in the forest. It takes too long for them to regrow. Yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of stuff in there. We just want that as pure as possible because all those mistakes have been made. And what's the other prep work that people should look to do? Like if you're going to gut your spiritual world, let's call it your mind, if we're going to revamp the mind, what are the materials that people need? Like, what are their spiritual push-ups going to look like in order for them to be successful?
Practice, 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 practice. It's practice before, practice afterwards. Practice before to build up the strength to handle the change, and then practice afterwards to get accustomed to the change. So yes, you do
Breath
need to have
work,
some.
meditation,
Yes, and
rituals.
I didn't want to get into specific practices because there are so many out there, and to prescribe one would
About an
be
hour a day
minimum.
minimum. TM
Minimum.
is great. We love TM. We're from that lineage. So of course I'm
First,
going to throw that
yes,
out there.
first, yeah, little in the morning, and a little in the evening. My my uh my favorite is sunrise, sunset.
Beautiful. That's it. So, that's all we've got for you today. Hopefully we'll be able to do this again. If we keep it short, maybe we'll get to see Patricio again. Bye for
Okay,
now.
well, that's it. Bye for now.